Let me take you right into the thick of it. June 6, 1944, 2:30 a.m. The English Channel's not just cold, it's bone-chilling, waves slapping the side of this tiny landing craft like someone's throwing buckets of ice water. You can smell the salt mixed with diesel, and every time the boat rocks, someone gags. Inside, 19-year-old Tom Murphy's squished between 30 other GIs, his M1 rifle pressed so tight to his chest he can feel the metal through his jacket. His boots, already soaked through, squelching every time he shifts, he forgot to pack extra socks, and now he's kicking himself for it. You can picture this, right? A kid from Boston, never been in a fight, never even left Massachusetts before the army, staring at the dark water, trying not to throw up. The boat's rocking so bad, his head spins. Someone next to him, Joe, his buddy from basic training, the guy who taught him to play poker and once shared his last chocolate bar, whispers, "You think we'll make it?" Tom just shrugs. He can't speak, his throat's too tight, like there's a knot in it. All he can think about is his mom's apple pie. She'd bake it every Sunday, with a lattice top he'd pick it while watching baseball, the diner where he flipped burgers after school. He'd sneak extra fries to Mr. Higgins, the regular who'd tell him stories about World War I, and how he promised her he'd come home for her 45th birthday in July. Then the loudspeaker crackles, static first, like a radio caught between stations, then a gruff voice, 30 minutes to Omaha Beach. Check your gear. And for God's sake, keep your heads down, those bunkers have eyes. Tom's hands shake as he tightens his helmet strap. The strap's too loose, and he fumbles with the buckle for a second, embarrassed, like he's failing a test. He looks around at the other guys, one kid from New York's praying the rosary, his lips moving fast, another from Texas is staring at a photo of a girl, probably his girlfriend, and rubbing the edge of it with his thumb, a third, some guy from Kansas, even crying quietly, his shoulders hunched. You gotta remember, these aren't superheroes. They're just kids, mostly. 18, 19, 20, guys who should be playing baseball in the park or asking girls to prom, not sitting in a cold boat waiting to get shot at. One of the older guys, Sergeant Miller, who's got a tattoo of an eagle on his arm, sees Tom staring. He claps him on the back. You'll be fine, kid. Just stick with me. We move fast, we stay low. Tom nods, but he's not sure if he believes it. What Tom didn't know that morning. He wasn't just part of an invasion. He was part of something way bigger, something that'd break Hitler's grip on Europe. And here's the kicker, it wouldn't be won by tanks or generals alone. It'd be won by guys like him, and people you never hear about, guys like Mike, fixing landing craft engines in the dark even though his hands are frozen, nurses like Emma, shoving bandages into a bag while listening to distant gunfire, even French kids like Jacques, slipping notes to Allied soldiers about German patrols when their parents aren't looking. Before we get to the beaches, let's talk about the lie Hitler built, 'cause that's what it was, a big, scary lie. By 1944, Hitler knew the Allies were gonna invade France. He just didn't know where. So he built this thing called the Atlantic Wall. You want to talk about overkill? 2,400 kilometers of coastline, from Norway all the way down to Spain, covered in barbed wire, mines, and concrete bunkers. It was like he wrapped half of Europe in a chain. Let me break it down for you, real simple. First, the barbed wire, some of it was 6 feet tall, tangled like metal vines, with sharp edges that'd slice through your uniform, and skin, if you got too close. They even strung it underwater, called anti-boat obstacles, so landing craft would get stuck or tear open. Imagine driving a car into a wall of thorns, but the thorns are metal and underwater. Then the mines, 5 million of M. Buried in the sand, you couldn't see M till you stepped on M, and by then it was too late, hidden in the grass, even floating in the water in little metal boxes. Step on one, and that's it. No second chances. Then the bunkers, 1,200 of M, made of thick concrete. We're talking 3 feet thick, thick enough to stop a tank shell, easy. Each one had a machine gun that could fire 500 rounds a minute. Imagine standing in front of a hose that sprays bullets, and you're the target. Some even had 88mm anti-tank guns, the same ones that tore up American Shermans in North Africa. Hitler called them the teeth of the wall. Said they'd chew up the Allies before they even hit the sand. They put General Erwin Rommel in charge of the wall, you know, the Desert Fox, the guy who gave the Allies hell in Africa. He wasn't just some guy sitting in an office. He toured the coast in his car, a black Mercedes, kicking dirt around and yelling at soldiers who weren't working fast enough. Once, he stopped at Hans's bunker and looked at the machine gun. "Is this thing cleaned?" he asked. Hans nodded. Rommel picked up a rag and wiped the barrel, found a speck of dust. "Clean it again. The Allies won't wait for you to fix your mistakes." Then he said to his officers, loud enough for everyone to hear, "The Allies will bleed to death on these beaches. Even if they get ashore, we'll push them back into the sea in 48 hours. He even ordered his soldiers to plant Rommel's asparagus, poles with mines on top, sticking out of the water like giant, deadly toothpicks, to rip holes in landing craft. The German soldiers bought it hook, line, and sinker. Take 22-year-old Hans Schmidt, he's a machine gunner in a bunker overlooking Omaha Beach. He wrote to his girlfriend, Liesel, in Berlin every week. One letter said, "The Americans and British are fools to try. Our bunkers are like fortresses, thick concrete, big guns. Their boats'll sink before they reach the sand. I'll be home by summer, I promise. I even saved a chocolate bar for you, found it in a supply crate. The food here is terrible, just stale bread and canned potatoes. Don't worry about me. I'm safe." Hans wasn't just bragging. He and his buddy Karl, another machine gunner, from Hamburg, would sit in the bunker for hours, playing cards and talking about home. Karl hated the war, he'd wanted to be a musician, not a soldier. "When this is over, I'm gonna play the piano in a bar," he'd say. "You'll come visit, right?" Hans would nod, but he wasn't sure. Karl even made a bet, 50 Reichmarks, that the invasion wouldn't come till July. "The weather's too bad," he'd say, looking out at the rain. "They won't risk it. The sea's too rough, their boats'll tip over." Most of the guys in the bunker agreed. They thought the Allies would land at Calais, closer to Germany, easier to reach, and the fake army there, they'd heard about it from spies, made sense. The Allies knew this wall looked unbeatable. General Eisenhower, he's the guy in charge of the whole thing, spent the night before D-Day pacing his bunker in England. The bunker was small, with a map of Normandy on the wall and a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. He drank a cup of coffee, cold, by then, and wrote a note, "Just in case, if any blame or fault attaches to the attempt, it is mine alone." He was ready to take the fall if it all went wrong, if thousands of kids died for nothing. But here's the thing, the Allies had a secret. Not a fancy weapon, not a super tank. Something smarter. A plan. And a whole bunch of ordinary people who were willing to risk everything to make it work, people like Harry, the carpenter building fake tanks, Elaine, the spy feeding Hitler lies, even Mike, the guy fixing landing craft engines at 2 a.m. while it rains. Let's talk about the con, 'cause that's what it was, a huge, brilliant con. The Allies knew they couldn't just charge the wall. They had to trick Hitler into moving his troops away from the real landing spot, Normandy, to a fake one, Calais. It was like playing a game of hide-and-seek, but with tanks and soldiers. First, they built a fake army. I'm not kidding, wooden tanks, canvas planes, even fake barracks, all in southeastern England, right across from Calais. They called it Operation Fortitude. And they didn't even try to hide it. They wanted German spies to discover it. Take Harry, a carpenter from Liverpool. He was 45, too old to fight, but he wanted to help. He spent 3 months building fake tanks out of wood and old sheets. "We'd cut the wood into the shape of a tank, nail it together, then paint it olive drab," he said later. We even put sticks on top to look like gun barrels. And we'd move M around with ropes, 2 guys pulling, 1 guy pushing, so when German planes flew over, they'd see M marching and think, whoa, that's a big army. They built fake radio towers too, and had actors pretend to be generals, talking about the Calais invasion over the air. One actor, Joe, who'd been in plays in London, said, "I was so nervous I forgot my lines once. But the spies didn't notice, they just wrote down everything I said." Then there's Elaine, a British intelligence officer. She was 30, sharp as a tack, and spoke 3 languages. She ran a double agent, code name Garbo, a Spanish guy named Juan Pujol Garcia who'd pretend to work for the Germans but actually reported to the Allies. Garbo was good, he even made up fake sources, like a contact in the French resistance, who didn't exist, to make his stories sound real. One day, he sent Hitler a top-secret message: Allied troops are massing at Calais. I've seen tanks, planes, and thousands of soldiers. Invasion coming soon, maybe in June. Hitler ate it up. He sent 150,000 soldiers to Calais, including his best tank division, the 15th Panzer Grenadiers. That's almost half his forces in France, sitting in the wrong place, waiting for an invasion that never came. Elaine later said, "When we got word Hitler had moved the troops, I cried. It was like we just won the first battle." Then there's the weather, oh, the weather. June 5, 1944, Eisenhower's in his bunker, staring at a weather map that looks like a mess. Rain, wind, rough seas, so bad the generals are gathered around, arguing. "We can't go," General Bradley said. "The landing craft will capsize. The men will drown before they even see the beach." Another general nodded, "The paratroopers can't jump, they'll get blown off course." Eisenhower just sits there, tapping his finger on the table. He's quiet for a minute, then turns to his meteor guy, James, this young kid from Iowa, fresh out of college, with a stack of weather reports in his hand. "James, be honest. What's the chance the weather clears up tomorrow?" James swallows hard, looks at the maps again. "Sir, there's a small window. Early morning, June 6th. The wind'll die down, the seas'll calm, for a few hours, anyway. After that, it'll get bad again. But if we wait, we'll have to wait a week, maybe more." Eisenhower nods. He takes a deep breath, like he's making the biggest decision of his life. We go. 6 a.m., June 6th. Why? 'Cause the Germans thought no one would be crazy enough to invade in bad weather. Hans later said, "We had a radio, listened to the weather report every morning. They said storms all week. We thought, no invasion today. We even took the day off, played cards, ate the chocolate Liesel sent me." Karl was still laughing about his 50 Reichmarks bet. He said, "Told you they wouldn't come." Now, the real army, 156,000 soldiers from 12 countries. Americans, British, Canadians, Australians, Poles, French, guys from all over, all fighting for the same thing, to get Europe back. They split into 5 beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, Sword. Each had a job. Utah and Omaha were American, Gold and Sword were British, Juneau was Canadian. But let's meet more people who made it happen, not just Tom, but folks you never hear about. There's Billy, 18, a British paratrooper from London. He's in AC-47 plane, 10,000 feet up, staring at the door. The plane's shaking, and he can hear the roar of the engines. His hands are so sweaty he can barely hold his rifle. He wipes them on his pants, but they just get sweaty again. He's got a photo of his little sister, Molly, in his pocket. She's 8, with pigtails, and he promised her he'd bring back a teddy bear from France. "Don't worry," he whispers to the photo, pressing it to his chest. "I'll be home soon. And I'll bring you the biggest teddy bear you've ever seen." Then there's Emma, 22, an American nurse from Chicago. She's on a hospital ship, 5 miles off Omaha Beach, packing bandages and plasma into a medical bag. The ship's rocking, and she's got a headache from the smell of seasickness. She's never seen combat before. She went to nursing school to help kids, not fix war wounds, but she volunteered anyway. She's got a letter from her mom in her pocket. Be brave, but be careful. I love you more than anything. She reads it twice, then folds it back up. She's scared, but she thinks about the soldiers, guys like Tom, scared and far from home, and knows she's gotta be there for them. And Marie, 24, a French resistance fighter from Cannes, we'll hear more from her later. She's hiding in her attic, checking her explosives, little packages of dynamite she's wrapped in cloth, hidden under her bed. The attic is small, with a single window that looks out at the street. She can hear a German patrol walking by, their boots clicking on the pavement. Her neighbor, Madame Dubois, knocks on the attic door quietly, 3 knocks, then 2, their secret signal. The radio said, "The day is here," Madame Dubois whispers. "Be careful. The Gestapo's been asking questions about you." Marie nods. She's been hiding from the Gestapo for 2 years. Once, they searched her house, but she'd hidden her explosives in a loaf of bread. If they catch her, she's dead. But she's not scared. She's angry. Angry at Hitler for taking her country, angry for her best friend, Sophie, who was shot by the Gestapo last year for hiding a Jewish family. Then there's Mike, 35, a mechanic from Detroit. He's on a dock in England, fixing a landing craft engine at 3 a.m. It's raining, and his hands are so cold they're numb, but he keeps working. This boat's gotta be ready, he says to himself. Those kids are counting on it. He'd been a mechanic in a car shop before the war, and he knows engines like the back of his hand. An hour later, he finishes. He taps the engine, good to go, and moves to the next boat. Now, the clock hits 6 a.m. The first landing craft start heading for Omaha Beach. And the chaos begins. Let's start with Omaha Beach, 'cause that's where the worst of it was. Tom's landing craft is about 50 meters from shore when boom, it hits a mine. The front door blows off, and water rushes in so fast it knocks Tom off his feet. He hits his head on the metal floor, and for a second, everything goes black. When he opens his eyes, he hears guys screaming, some in pain, some just scared. Water's up to his knees, and he's choking on salt water. He looks over and sees Joe, his buddy, lying in the water, his leg bleeding bad. A piece of shrapnel stuck in his thigh, and blood's turning the water red. "Help me, Tom. Please." Joe yells, his voice cracking. Tom doesn't think. He dives into the water, cold enough to make his teeth chatter, so deep it's up to his chest, and swims to Joe. He grabs Joe's arm, but Joe's too heavy. I can't move," Joe says, crying. Tom grits his teeth. "Yes you can. We're gonna make it. Mom's waiting for me, and your girlfriend's waiting for you, remember Sarah?" Joe nods, and that gives him strength. Together, they stumble toward the edge of the craft. They wade through the water, every step a struggle, sand pulling at their boots like hands trying to drag them down, while machine gun bullets zip past their heads. One bullet hits the water next to Tom, sending up a splash. He flinches, but keeps going. He sees a guy next to him get hit, just falls into the water, no sound, no nothing. Tom tries not to look. He tries to focus on the sand, on getting to shore, on his mom's apple pie. When they finally reach the beach, it's a nightmare. Landing craft are on fire, smoke blackening the sky so much it looks like night. Guys are lying in the sand, some dead, some yelling for help, some just staring at the sky like they can't believe what's happening. The German bunkers are firing non-stop, the machine guns making this loud, steady rat-tat-tat that makes Tom's ears ring. He can't hear anything else, no screams, no waves, just that rat-tat-tat. He drops to his knees, pulls Joe behind a metal barrier, an old tank trap, rusted and bent, and checks Joe's leg. The bleeding slowed, but Joe's pale. "Stay here," Tom says. "I'll get help." Then he looks up and sees Sergeant Miller, the guy who clapped him on the back earlier, yelling, "Follow me. We gotta take that bunker. If we don't, more guys'll die." The sergeant's carrying a Bangalore torpedo, this long tube filled with explosives, about as big as a baseball bat. He runs toward the barbed wire, Tom right behind him. They push the torpedo under the wire, set the fuse, and run. Boom, a big hole in the wire, smoke pouring out. Tom and a group of GIs run through the hole, into the dunes. The sand's hot now, and Tom's boots are full of it. They find the bunker, and Tom throws a grenade through the window. Boom, silence. Tom kicks the door open, rifle ready. Inside, he sees Hans, blood on his arm, hands up. "I surrender," Hans says, his voice shaking. He's got a cut on his forehead, and his uniform's torn. Tom stares at him. He's just a kid, too, same age as Tom. Scared, just like everyone else. Tom lowers his rifle. "Get up. Move. Don't try anything stupid." Hans nods, and follows Tom out of the bunker. By noon, Omaha Beach is still a mess. Bodies everywhere, sand turned red. But the Allies have a little spot, just a few hundred meters, but they're holding it. 2,400 Americans died there that day. But they didn't give up. Sergeant Miller was one of them. He got shot while helping a wounded soldier. Tom finds his body later, and takes the eagle tattoo off his arm, with permission, from the sergeant's buddy, to send to his family. Now, let's go to Emma, the nurse. She's on a landing craft heading to Omaha, carrying a medical bag so heavy her arm hurts. The beach is chaos, guys are lying everywhere, screaming for help. She jumps off the craft, and sand gets in her shoes. She runs to the first soldier she sees, a kid from Ohio, maybe 19, with a bullet wound in his chest. She drops to her knees. "I'm here," she says, pulling out a bandage. She presses down on the wound, but the blood soaks through immediately. "Stay with me," she says, talking fast. "Tell me about your family. Do you have a girlfriend?" He nods, but he can't speak. His eyes close, and Emma knows he's gone. She cries for a second, quietly, so no one hears, then wipes her eyes. There are more soldiers to help. She sees Tom carrying Joe toward her. "Over here," she yells, waving her arm. Tom sets Joe down gently, and Emma kneels next to him. She checks his leg, shrapnel wound, not life-threatening, but it needs to be cleaned. She takes out a bottle of antiseptic, pours it on the wound, and Joe winces. "Sorry," she says. "It'll hurt, but it'll keep it from getting infected." She wraps it in a bandage, then pulls out a syringe of morphine. "This'll help with the pain." She injects it into Joe's arm, and his shoulders relax. "You'll be okay," she says. Joe nods, then passes out. Tom thanks her, his voice shaky, like he's about to cry, and goes back to help other guys. Emma works for hours, not stopping to eat or drink. By the end of the day, her hands are covered in blood, and her back hurts. But she doesn't care. She saved 12 soldiers that day, 12 guys who got to go home to their families. Now, let's go up in the air with Sarah, 21, a British Spitfire pilot. She's flying over Juno Beach, looking for German planes. The sky's blue now, but there's smoke from the beach below. She's got her goggles pushed up on her forehead, and her hair's sticking out of her helmet. She sees 3 Messerschmitts diving toward a landing craft, her brother John's landing craft, she thinks. John's in the British Army, and he's landing at Gold Beach, but the craft looks like the ones from his unit. "No you don't," she says, pulling back on the stick. Her plane climbs fast, and she feels a push in her chest. She dives, fires her machine guns. The bullets hit one Messerschmitt, and it goes down in a ball of flame, smoke trailing behind it like a black ribbon. The other two Messerschmitts turn and run, they don't want to fight. Sarah laughs, relieved, scared, proud all at once. Then she sees something else, a column of German tanks heading toward the beach, their guns pointing forward. She dives again, drops a bomb. It hits the lead tank, boom, and the tank explodes. The other tanks stop, scared to move. "That's for you, John," she says, smiling. Later, she lands her Spitfire, one wing's shot up, but she's alive. She jumps out of the plane, and runs to the radio room, out of breath. Her boots are covered in oil, and her hands are shaking. "Did you hear about Gold Beach? Is John okay?" The radio operator, an older guy named Ted, smiles. "He's ashore. Got a little cut on his arm, but he's fine. Sent a message, tell Sarah thanks for the air support. Owes me a beer when this is over." Sarah cries. Happy tears, this time. She sits down on a bench, and takes a drink of water. She's tired, but she's never felt more alive. Now, let's go to Utah Beach, different from Omaha, but just as tough. Billy, the British paratrooper, is supposed to land near Utah, but his plane gets hit by anti-aircraft fire. The plane shakes, and the pilot yells, "Jump! Jump!" Billy grabs his parachute, runs to the door, and jumps. The wind pulls him, and he spins in the air. He looks up, his parachute's open, but it's caught in a tree. He's hanging 10 feet up, staring at the ground. Below him, German soldiers are walking by, talking in German. He holds his breath, so quiet he can hear his own heart beating. He pulls a knife from his boot, small, but sharp, and cuts the ropes. He falls to the ground, rolls into a bush, and stays there. The Germans walk past, not seeing him. When they're gone, he checks his gear, his radio's broken, his rifle's gone, he must have dropped it when he jumped, but he's got his knife and the photo of Molly. He creeps through the woods, trying to find other paratroopers. The woods are quiet, except for birds chirping and distant gunfire. He hears voices, English voices, and runs toward them. There they are, 10 other paratroopers, lost like him. Their leader, a guy named Captain Lewis, says, "We need to find the beach. Anybody know where we are?" Billy remembers seeing a map before he jumped, he'd studied it for hours. "I know where we are," he says. "Follow me. There's a path through the woods that leads to Utah Beach. I saw it on the map." They walk for an hour, avoiding German patrols. Once, they hide behind a tree while a group of soldiers walks by. Billy's heart's pounding, if they get caught, they're dead. Finally, they see Utah Beach, Allied soldiers are already ashore, fighting. They run toward them, yelling, "We're British. Don't shoot." A soldier from Utah Beach waves them over. "Glad you made it," he says. "We need all the help we can get." Later, Billy finds a working radio and calls headquarters. "We're here," he says. "Ready to help." He thinks about Molly, he'll get that teddy bear after all. Now, Marie in can. She and 2 other resistance fighters, Jacques, 26, a teacher, and Pierre, 30, a baker, sneak into a railroad yard at 4 a.m. Their job? Blow up the tracks so German reinforcements can't reach Sword Beach. The railroad yard is dark, and they have to be quiet, guards are patrolling. Jacques sets the timer on the explosives, 10 minutes. "We gotta move fast," he says. "If the guards find us, we're dead." They hide behind a boxcar, waiting. When the timer hits 1 minute, they run. Boom, the tracks blow up, pieces of metal flying everywhere. Marie laughs, quietly, so no one hears, but then she hears voices. "Gestapo. Find them. Shoot on sight." Marie runs into an alley, dives into a dumpster. Garbage everywhere, rotten food, old boxes, even a broken doll. She holds her breath, listening to the Gestapo yell. They're right outside, just a few feet away. Check the dumpster, one yells. Marie closes her eyes, waiting. But then another Gestapo says, "Nah, no one's in there. It's too dirty." They walk away. Marie stays there for 3 hours, freezing, covered in garbage. When she finally comes out, she wipes the garbage off her clothes and walks home. She turns on the radio, quiet, so no one hears, and listens. A voice says, "Allied forces have taken Sword Beach. The invasion is working." She cries. For the first time in years, she feels hope. Maybe Sophie didn't die for nothing. Maybe France will be free again. The fight didn't end on June 6th. Oh, no, it took 7 weeks for the Allies to break out of the beaches. Let's talk about what happened next, 'cause that's where the real work started. First, the hedgerows. You ever seen a hedgerow? They're tall, thick bushes, 10 feet high, roots that go deep into the ground. Normandy's full of M, and the Germans loved M. They'd hide in the hedgerows, wait for the Allies to walk by, then open fire. It was like fighting in a maze. You couldn't see the enemy, but they could see you. Tom's unit is stuck in the hedgerows for 2 weeks. They can't move forward, can't see the Germans. Every time they try to advance, someone gets shot. One day, an old French farmer, Monsieur Dubois, Marie's neighbor, walks up to them. He's 70, with a white beard, a straw hat, and a pitchfork over his shoulder. His grandson, Jacques, 8 years old, is with him, holding his hand. Monsieur Dubois speaks broken English. "You want to get through these hedgerows," he says. "I show you. My family's lived here for 100 years. I know every gap, every path." Tom looks at the sergeant, who shrugs. "Lead the way. But be careful, if this is a trap, we're all dead." Monsieur Dubois takes them to a gap in the hedgerows, so small you can barely see it, hidden by ivy. "Germans don't know about this," he says. "My grandson found it, he plays here with his friends. You go through here, you're behind their lines. No one will see you." Jacques pulls a crumpled map out of his pocket. He drew it himself, with crayons. The map has little excess for German bunkers and a red line for the path. "Here's the German bunker," he says, pointing to a little X. "It's got 2 soldiers. They sleep at night. The Allies attack that night. They go through the gap, quiet as mice, and sneak up on the bunker. They throw grenades through the window, and the bunker falls. They take the village, no problem." Tom shakes Monsieur Dubois's hand. "Merci," he says. He kneels down to Jacques, pulls a piece of gum out of his pocket, spearmint, his favorite, and gives it to him. "For you," he says. Jacques smiles, takes it, and pops it in his mouth. Then there's the liberation of Paris, August 25, 1944. Marie's there, walking through the streets. People are waving American flags, throwing flowers, cheering so loud it hurts her ears. A baker, Pierre, who used to give her free croissants before the war, hands her a loaf of bread. "For the Allies," he says. "Tell them thank you." She sees Tom's unit march in. Tom's got his arm in a sling, he got shot in the hedgerows, a bullet grazed his arm, and a bandage on his forehead. She runs up to him, holds out the bread. "For you," she says. "It's fresh. Better than rations, I think." Tom takes it, smiles. "Thanks. I've been eating rations for weeks, they're okay, but they taste like cardboard. This'll be a treat." He takes a bite, and his eyes light up. "Wow. That's good." They walk together to the Arc de Triomphe. There are people everywhere, singing La Marseillaise, the French national anthem, at the top of their lungs. Marie sees a woman painting a mural on a wall. She stops. It's Sophie. Her best friend. Sophie's alive. Marie runs up to her. Sophie. I thought you were dead. Sophie turns, and smiles. I escaped. The Gestapo didn't find me. I've been hiding in the countryside. They hug, crying. Marie can't believe it, her best friend is alive. Hitler was furious when he heard Paris was being liberated. He ordered his generals to burn it to the ground, destroy the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, everything. But the German commander, General von Choltitz, refused. He said, I will not be the man who destroys Paris. This city is too beautiful, too important. Let the Allies have it. By March 1945, the Allies reached the Rhine River. Hitler's empire is falling apart, his soldiers are tired, his supplies are gone. On May 8, 1945, VE Day, Germany surrenders. The war in Europe is over. Tom hears the news on the radio, and he cries. He's going home. Let's catch up with our guys after the war, 'cause their stories don't end on D-Day. Tom goes back to Boston. He gets a job at the diner where he used to flip burgers. Mr. Higgins, the regular, still comes in, and they talk about the war. He marries his high school sweetheart, Mary. They met at a dance when they were 17, and they have 3 kids, 2 boys, Tom Jr. and Joe, named after his buddy, and a girl, Lily. He never talks much about D-Day, not even to his kids. Not until his grandson, Tim, is 10 and asks, Grandpa, what did you do in the war? Tom takes Tim to his attic, which is full of old boxes. He pulls out an old helmet, dented, with a bullet hole in the side, and Joe's dog tags. Joe survived, moved to Chicago, married Sarah, and they stay in touch every Christmas. I was just a kid, like you, he says. I didn't do anything special. I just didn't want to let my buddies down. A lot of good guys died that day. We gotta remember them. Emma, the nurse, goes back to Chicago. She becomes a pediatric nurse. She says, I want to help kids, not fix war wounds. Kids are innocent. They don't deserve to hurt. She marries a doctor, David, and they have 2 kids, a boy, Michael, and a girl, Emily. Every year on D-Day, she sends Tom a card. One card says, thinking of you and Joe. Remember the beach? We did good. A lot of guys went home because of us. Sarah keeps flying. After the war, she becomes a flight instructor, teaching other women how to fly. Back then, not a lot of women were pilots, but Sarah wanted to change that. Her brother John opens a garage in London, and they see each other every weekend. They go fishing, talk about the war, and laugh about the time Sarah saved his life. In 1994, on the 50th anniversary of D-Day, Sarah flies a Spitfire again, just for fun. She says, it felt like old times. Like I was right back there, protecting John. The plane's still fast, faster than I remember. Her granddaughter, Lily, becomes a pilot too. She flies commercial planes, and Sarah goes to every one of her first flights. She sits in the front row, clapping and crying. Marie becomes a teacher in Cannes. She teaches her students about D-Day, about the resistance, about how ordinary people can make a difference. Every year on June 6, she takes her class to the railroad yard where she blew up the tracks. They lay flowers there, and she tells them her story. You don't have to be a soldier to be brave, she says. You just have to be willing to stand up for what's right. Sophie, her friend, becomes an artist. She paints murals of D-Day all over Paris, so people never forget. Hans goes back to Berlin after the war. He marries Liesel. She waited for him, just like he promised, and they have a son, Peter. He gets a job as a mechanic, fixing cars in a shop downtown. He never talks about being a soldier, never mentions the bunker or Omaha Beach. He doesn't want Peter to grow up scared of war. But one day, Peter is 10 and asks, Dad, why do you have a scar on your arm? Hans sits down with Peter, and tells him the truth, about the war, about the bunker, about Tom. He could have shot me, he says. But he didn't. That's the lesson, son, war makes enemies, but kindness can make friends. Never hate someone just because they're from a different country. We're all just people. In 1994, Hans sees a news report about D-Day commemorations in Normandy. He sees Tom being interviewed, talking about Omaha Beach, about Joe, about the guys who died. Hans writes Tom a letter, "I'm sorry for what we did. Thank you for sparing me. I have a son now, and I tell him your story. I want him to know that kindness matters." Tom writes back a month later, "Let's put it behind us. We were just kids. I'd like to meet you, if you want. Normandy, maybe. We can walk the beach together." They meet in Normandy that year, two old men, shaking hands on Omaha Beach. Billy goes back to London. He becomes a teacher, too. He teaches history at a high school, and he tells his students about jumping out of that plane, about finding the other paratroopers, about Jacques the farmer's grandson. He keeps the photo of Molly in his wallet. She grows up, becomes a nurse, and they're close. Every year on D-Day, he sends Jacques a box of English candy, chocolate, toffee, hard candy. Jacques sends him a postcard, "Merci for the candy. My kids love it. Remember the gum you gave me? I still have the wrapper." Mike, the mechanic, goes back to Detroit. He opens his own car shop, and he hires veterans, guys who can't find jobs because of their wounds. He says, "These guys fought for our country. They deserve a chance." He marries his high school sweetheart, Linda, and they have 3 kids. Every year on D-Day, he hangs a flag outside his shop, and he tells his customers about fixing landing craft engines in the rain. "Those kids needed those boats," he says. "I was just doing my job." Let's talk about the numbers, 'cause they matter, but not as much as the people. 156,000 soldiers landed on D-Day. 4,414 Allied soldiers died that day, guys like Sergeant Miller, who never got to go home. 10,000 were wounded or missing. The Germans lost between 4,000 and 9,000 soldiers. But here's another number, 4,000 landing craft, 11,000 planes, 2 million tons of supplies, all to get those soldiers ashore. Tons of food, medicine, ammunition, trucks, tanks, jeeps, everything they needed to fight. But D-Day isn't just about numbers. It's about what it meant. Before D-Day, Hitler controlled most of Europe. He had concentration camps, where he killed millions of Jews, gypsies, and anyone who disagreed with him. He had people scared to speak up, scared to say, "This is wrong." He had a wall that everyone thought was unbreakable. After D-Day, the Allies were on the offensive. It was the beginning of the end for Hitler. But here's the thing no one puts in history books, D-Day was won by ordinary people. Not by generals in fancy offices, not by tanks or planes. By guys like Tom, who dragged their buddies to safety even though they were scared. By nurses like Emma, who patched up wounds in the rain even though they'd never seen combat. By paratroopers like Billy, who jumped out of burning planes even though they thought they'd die. By resistance fighters like Marie, who risked their lives to blow up tracks even though the Gestapo was looking for them. By farmers like Monsieur Dubois and kids like Jacques, who showed the way even though they could have gotten shot. By mechanics like Mike, who fixed engines in the dark even though their hands were frozen. It's about teamwork. 12 countries, all working together. Americans, British, Canadians, French, people who spoke different languages, ate different food, had different traditions, but they had the same goal, freedom. They didn't care where you were from. They cared if you were willing to fight. Hitler thought he could build a wall to keep freedom out. But he forgot one thing, freedom isn't something you can block with concrete and barbed wire. It's something people are willing to fight for. Something people are willing to die for. It's in our bones, to want to be free, to want to choose our own lives. Today, there are cemeteries in Normandy, rows and rows of white crosses, each one marking a soldier who died that day. The grass is green, and the beaches are quiet now. Tom went there in 1994, on the 50th anniversary. He stood in front of a cross marked "Unknown Soldier," and said, "I never knew your name, but I'll never forget you. You fought for us. We're free because of you." He left a piece of gum on the cross, spearmint, Jacques' favorite. Sarah took her grandchildren to the Spitfire Museum in England. She showed them her plane, the same one she flew on D-Day, with her name painted on the side in pink. She'd asked the mechanics to paint it and they'd laughed, but they did it. "This plane didn't win the war," she said. "The people who flew it, who fought on the beaches, who hid in dumpsters, they won the war. Never forget that." Marie's students still go to the railroad yard every year. They lay flowers, they listen to her story, and they promise to never forget. One year, a student asks, "Ms. Du Bois, would you do it again?" Marie nods. Yes. Because freedom is worth fighting for. Even if it's scary. Why does D-Day matter today? 'Cause it's a reminder that freedom isn't free. Someone has to fight for it, someone has to be brave. It's a reminder that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they work together. You don't have to be a superhero. You just have to be willing to help, to stand up, to say, "This is wrong." It's a reminder that walls, whether they're made of concrete, or hate, or fear, can be broken. Hitler's wall was broken by kids with rifles, nurses with bandages, farmers with pitchforks. If they can break that wall, we can break the walls we have today, walls that divide us, walls that make us hate each other. Tom's grandson Tim now teaches history. Every year on D-Day, he tells his students his grandpa's story. He says, "My grandpa wasn't a hero. He was just a kid who did what he had to do." And that's the point, heroes aren't born. They're made, when they choose to help someone else, when they choose to fight for what's right. You can be a hero too. It doesn't take a gun. It takes kindness, and courage, and teamwork. Emma's daughter Emily becomes a human rights lawyer. She works with refugees, helping them find homes. She says, "Mom taught me that everyone deserves help, no matter where they're from." D-Day was about freedom for everyone, not just Americans, not just Europeans. Everyone. Sarah's granddaughter Lily flies planes all over the world. She flies to places where people are still fighting for freedom, and she delivers supplies. She says, "Grandma taught me to be brave, even when I'm scared. She taught me that flying isn't just about going fast, it's about helping people." Let's go back to Tom and Hans, standing on Omaha Beach in 1994. The sun's shining, the waves are calm, and kids are playing in the sand. It's hard to believe that 50 years earlier, this beach was a battlefield. Tom bends down, picks up a handful of sand. It's warm, and it slips through his fingers. "This sand's seen a lot," he says. "It's seen blood, it's seen fear. But it's also seen courage. It's seen hope. Look at it now, kids playing, families laughing. That's why we fought. For this." Hans nods. He's crying, quietly, so no one sees. "I never thought I'd be here," he says. "I never thought I'd say this, but, thank you. For sparing me. For giving me a chance to be a dad, a grandpa. My grandson's here, too, he's playing over there." He points to a little boy, running in the sand. "I tell him about you. About how war can end with kindness, not hate." They shake hands. Two old men, once enemies, now friends. They walk along the beach, talking about their families, about the war, about how lucky they are to be alive. That's what D-Day is. Not just a day in history. A story of hope. A story of people who refuse to give up, who refuse to let Hitler win. A story that says, no matter how tough things get, no matter how big the wall, we can overcome it, together. So next time you hear about D-Day, don't just think about the beaches. Don't just think about the numbers. Think about Tom, Sarah, Marie, Hans, Emma, Billy, Mike, Jacques. Think about all the ordinary people who did extraordinary things. And remember, the same courage that got them through D-Day is in all of us. We just gotta find it. Thanks for listening. Let's never forget.